Hello, and welcome to Media-eval, a medieval pop culture podcast, where we talk about how medieval and medieval-inspired movies, TV, and books depict the medieval world. What did they get right? What did they get wrong? And what do they tell us about how modern people see the medieval past? I'm Sarah ifft, a medieval historian, and today I'm joined by guest MJ Bradley-Lestrange to talk about Tamora Pierce's Protector of the Small Quartet in the second of our Tamora Pierce episodes.
I'm back!
Yes. So do you want to briefly, I know most people have probably listened to the previous episode, but just in case, do you want to briefly tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to talk about these books?
Yes. So if you listened to the previous episode, you know that I am also a podcaster. I'm on 3 shows. One is called Reignite, about the Mass Effect series of video games. Circle of Magic, which is one of Tamora Pierce's other series. And I am also on the Rob Thomas, no, not that one, Robcast, which focuses on the creative works of Rob Thomas. No, it's not that one. Don't worry about him. We don't talk about that one. That being said...
It's always the other one.
It's always the other one. That being said, the reason why I wanted to talk about Tamora Pierce's books is because I learn a lot from them. I've mentioned before that I read them horribly out of order. Like, so terribly out of order. Like, 3 generations later, it's terrible. It's absolutely bad. But... that being said, even though I didn't read Alanna until I was in my early 20s, I still got a lot out of it. Like, I wish that I had met her when I was much younger. I wish that I met Kel when I was much younger, especially. I was horribly bullied as a child.
Yeah.
I had
Same, high five.
Oh, same hat. I had, like, very long hair past my hips, and that was, like, everybody's focal point for bullying me, because that's how I was weird. And when I was a high school senior, I chopped off all my hair because I was like, I'm finally free of the thing that they bullied me about, and instead they bullied me about being gay, and I was like, I can't even criticize you on that one! At the time, I didn't, like, have the label that I use now, which is pansexual, but I was just like, I can't even talk, I'm so mad. How dare you? But yeah, if I had Kel, then maybe I would have been a much calmer child.
Yeah, she's
also,
very
maybe
calm.
I would have gotten into a lot of fights. I might have picked a lot more fights.
The example we learned from Kel is that if somebody bullies you, you should beat them up and they deserve it.
Well, sometimes they do deserve it.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they just like beating up people that are smaller than them, and you have to step up. I'm very passionate about Kel. Like, I love Alanna, but I am ride or die for Kel. I
read these books for the very first time, and so I came to really love Kel, but Alanna is my ride or die. But I came to really love Kel, and I really, really did enjoy these books. But as mentioned previously, I had a stage after I had read and obsessed over Song of the Lioness and Wild Magic. The Immortals, is that what that quartet is actually called? I can never remember.
It is called The Immortals.
Thank you.
You are not crazy.
Which is weird, because don't the Immortals not show up until book, 2 or 3?
They actually do start to appear in 1.
They do, okay.
We meet the Stormwings in 1.
Oh, okay, we do. Okay, I need to reread them. I was really into those, and then by the time Protector of the Small started coming out, which was in 1999, I was getting to the point where I was like, I read grown-up books now. I'm fancy.
Which is a wild thing to say if you know some grown-up books.
Oh, right, yeah, absolutely. Not a reasonable position in any way to take, but...
I read The Magicians by Lev Grossman. It's way more mature than Harry Potter.
Right.
I love Lev Grossman, I'm sorry. Lev Grossman, I love you.
I love The Magicians very much.
We bonded once over our love for Borders.
Oh, that's nice.
He's a nice man.
So you, met him? That's nice.
I did. I actually used to work at Books of Wonder, which is a huge, very popular children's bookstore here on the East Coast.
Okay.
They had the largest collection of rare and used children's books.
Cool.
It was the bookstore that was the inspiration for You've Got Mail.
Really? Cute.
It was a really great experience for me. I got to meet a lot of authors as a result.
Yeah.
I have also met Tamora Pierce.
Oh, so jealous.
I met her shortly after my husband and I got engaged. And I said, oh, hey, you're kind of the reason that we're together. And she was like, don't put that on me. That's not my fault. I was like, well, I meant that in a good way, but okay.
I mean, I can kind of see like, oh God, like, and you're gonna then remember me if you like get divorced.
Well, it's more because reading these books, I feel, make you a better person, and my relationship with my husband did not become good until he read all of these books.
Good.
So
Maybe I should have told my ex-husband to do that.
they make you a better person, and it's if somebody invests the time in reading the things that you're passionate about, then that shows the level of care that they have for you. And John like devoured these books. He is also ride or die for Kel.
Yeah.
He was 25, I want to say, when reading all of these books for the first time. He read all of Alana and The Immortals and Protector of the Small. He read Trickster's Choice and Trickster's Queen, Becca Cooper. I think the 2 Tortall series for him is Protector of the Small and Becca Cooper. Because it's very much about protecting people.
Yeah.
And while the others are, not to the degree that these 2 series are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
And it's really nice. I like these books.
Yeah, it's wholesome in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So this is a Protector of the Small quartet, which was released between 1999 and 2002, with the 4 books being First Test, Page, Squire, and Lady Knight. Yes, Carmen, thank you for your contribution.
Did you tell them? Make sure that you tell them.
This one also has animals. Yes, it does. What are you doing? Okay. I'll cut that out. So for the first section, the enumeratio, I'll start with just a very brief explanation of the premise, and then we'll get into a more informal discussion of the series. The Protector of the Small quartet centers on Keladri of Mindolin, who is the first woman to openly try for her shield after it is now permitted to do so in Tortall because of Alana, essentially. The series follows Keladri as she makes friends, earns her shield, and develops both a dedication to protecting the vulnerable and the ability to do so successfully. So fuck King Jonathan, though.
Okay, so here's the problem that we encounter as soon as Protector of the Small opens in First Test. In order to pass the laws that he wants to pass and be as progressive as he wants to be, he has to make all of these like considerations to the conservatives, because a lot of people believe that Alana cheated to get her shield and everybody conspired.
Right, that she like used magic, or that like the gods did it or whatever.
Right. So in a lot of ways, like, yes, fuck King Jonathan, because he agrees to let Lord Wilden, the new training master, to put Keladri on probation, even though nobody said anything about probation.
And no male page has ever had a probationary period.
Nope. And I think that while King Jonathan is definitely at fault in a lot of ways, I think that the concept of a probation should definitely apply to all of them, especially after
I'd be
reading
fine
these
if it was
books.
just a new rule for pages.
Yeah, like every page from now on needs a year of probation, so we can make sure that you're serious about this and you're the kind of person we want protecting our country.
Yeah, but the fact that this applies to the one
Only
girl
Kel.
that doesn't apply to any of the boys and will continue to not apply to any of the boys is some real misogynist bullshit.
It really is. And Kel knows it, and it's almost the reason why she decides not to do it.
Yeah, that she's like, maybe I should just do something else because, like, actually, like, fuck that and fuck them.
Yeah. She often has moments where she's confronted with the king, and she's just like, yeah, no, fuck you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. And she's like, and she's also like, I know objectively you're attractive, but I don't like you.
Like, I know that you're handsome. I know that you're very inspiring, but also fuck you.
Like, I'm not fucking here for it.
How dare you?
The other bullshit is that Alana is basically told that she, like, can't fucking talk to her.
Yeah, which is frustrating. I do see the point. Alana hasn't showed any interest in any of the pages, so it is favoritism. But it is unfair that Kel can't, like, write her a letter and be like, hey, you were in my position before. I'd like to ask for your advice.
Yeah.
By closing off that avenue for Kel, you're creating even more of a hostile environment for her. She has no one that she can turn to.
Alana is an obvious person for her to turn to as a mentor in a way that, like, I mean, that, like, representation matters, and that, like, having, you know, teachers and mentors who have had the kinds of experiences that you have had, and people, you know, who share your gender or race or sexual orientation, like, those things matter.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, people who are, like, going to mentor you effectively. And so it's a disadvantage that Kel has that could be remedied that no other male pages have, because they all have some dude mentors and they're dudes.
Yeah, very early in first test, there is an interaction with Lord Wilden, the new training master. Piers of Mindolin, who is an excellent dad. Let's just give it up for a good dad.
He is a very good dad. She has great parents. I really like
does.
both of her parents.
I love when we can get away from the, like, dead parents, the bad parents, like...
Yeah. But, like, she doesn't see her parents that often once she becomes a knight, or once she, like, starts her training as a page, because you just don't. But whenever she sees them, they're very happy to see her, and they're very nice, and they're very, like, loving, and they're very supportive, and it's great.
They're very proud of her, and they make sure that she knows that every time. She never has to guess.
Yeah.
Which is really nice and comforting. And Piers sitting with her talking to Lord Wilden. Lord Wilden starts talking about, like, the different rules. Like, if there's a boy in her room, the door must be open. Which is valid. However, the reasoning should be for Kel's safety and not for the reputation of the boys.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the reason that he gives, because, like, I will not stand flirtations. And Piers is like, my dude, she's 10.
Yeah, exactly.
A child. And he's like, it's my experience that females start young. Wow.
And of course he says females, right?
Every time someone says females, I'm just like, is there a Ferengi in this room?
That's actually the one time, by the way, that Jonathan one time says that female when referring to Alana, and he means it, like,
it's just like,
it's like, dude, no, with this whole incel bullshit.
Should be portrayed by a Ferengi. That's it. But Lord Wilden, I got so upset. He does improve over time. He becomes a much better person, a much better man, and a much better teacher. But when we first meet him, man, this perpetuation of rape culture, this it's just, have you ever met a 10-year-old who's just like, oh yeah, I'm ready to sleep with some men? No, you haven't.
Because that's not a 10-year. That's not what 10-year-olds are like.
If you ever see a 10-year-old who's pregnant, that 10-year-old had no choice, my dude.
Oh no, yeah. Ugh.
And that was an older man who made that decision, but you're not ready to have that conversation, are you, Lord Wilden?
Nope. So that's really gross. And in general, just, like, it also is very clear that, like, he does not treat her for, certainly throughout this first book, he does not treat her the way that he treats the male pages, that he is deliberately harder on her.
He is. And there's so many situations where her safety is put at risk because he's giving her the cold shoulder. He's not giving her the same amount of attention and due and care that the boys are getting. Like, Joran puts her in a bad situation and, like, tries to seriously hurt her in order to try and get her to leave. And when it's found out, does Joran get in trouble for instigating a fight?
Of course he doesn't.
Of course not, because he's literally the golden boy.
Yeah.
And Kel's the one who gets in trouble because she does something fancy that she learned in a different country.
Right. How dare she?
How dare she know something different?
Yep. Just absolute bullshit.
It really is. And it's so frustrating. But Kel fucking takes it. And not only does she take it, but she fights against it every chance she gets.
Yes.
Like, she learns to pick her battles.
Right. And she learns to pick her battles, but also is very committed really early on to, I'm not going to let people get bullied when there is something that I can do to stop it. And so, like, she starts basically this, like, one-woman anti-bullying campaign against Joran and his friends who just, like, bully the smaller pages. And, that there's, like, some amount of, like, page hazing that's normal of, like, they have to, like, make them get stuff for you and whatnot. But there's, like, a clear delineation of the fact that, like, there are these pages who take it too, older pages who take it too far.
Yeah, like, they smack a page around, or they, like, force them to clean using their own clothes. Like, they're very deliberately awful about it.
Right. But also they, like, clean, like, messes that they made on purpose so that they'd have something to make them clean, or, like, that, it's fine to say to a younger page, like, go and get this book from the library for me, but it's not fine to say, go and get this book, and then they bring back the book, and then they say, like, you're an idiot, I didn't want that book, I wanted this book, and you make them do it 30 times.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want anyone to think that Kel is just, like, perfect from outset.
No.
She encounters this practice for the first time, and she knows that it's wrong, and she
Yeah.
feels that it's wrong, but she runs away because
Right.
she's scared. She's 10 years old. These boys are older, bigger, and they have more experience than she does. It is
Yeah.
a very smart thing to do, to run away.
Yeah. Yeah. And she, and also like there's a bunch of them and she's alone. Like,
Yeah.
it's really understandable.
But that's when she starts to think about it more critically, and she's like, you know what? How can I run away and still become a knight?
Yeah.
And she takes chivalry so seriously. She takes her duty seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about this scene where Neil is out of his mind with worry. He thinks that she is addicted to fighting.
I love Neil, by the way.
He's so good.
He's so good.
He takes her under his wing immediately, even though he's like Lord Wilden's least favorite person in the entire castle.
Right. And he's like, all right, fuck, I'll do it. And okay, and also like nobody except for him will take her. And I do actually think it's really striking, and it totally makes sense to me that in this like chivalry emphasized like male bonding culture, that Alana had no trouble in a lot of ways with making friends because she was Alan.
Mm-hmm.
And because like even though she was like, small or whatever, like that doesn't matter. She's still like one of the guys. But that Kel never has that.
Yeah.
Because she's openly, because she's openly a woman. And while obviously it's better that she has the ability to do that, it's also like she immediately gets treated differently, not only by Lord Wilden, but also by her peers.
Yeah. She starts off with this inherent bias against her.
Yeah.
And her presence really stirs things up. And I think it's a good thing because it shows Lord Wilden where he's been going wrong all of these years.
Yes, and shows everybody. And also, like, okay, just one other thing that I want to mention about how Jonathan kind of sucks. Yes. We find out that his daughter wanted
Callison.
to train as a page, Callison, who was named after her grandmother, Thiat's mother, who, like, killed herself because her husband sucked so much. And she wanted to train as a page, and he said no because it was like not going to look good for this marriage that he was making for her with, I think, like the son of the Emperor of Carthage or something.
Oh God, is she marrying Kadar after all? Sorry, I'm trying to remember who she's marrying.
That's what I think it said when I was doing some Googling to follow up on things.
In the Immortals, the Emperor of Carthage is overthrown, and his heir, his nephew, Kadar, takes over. Right. And a lot of people who served Ozorn are still, like, rebelling against Kadar, right, even though he is the rightful heir. Because Kadar is trying to do things like end slavery.
God forbid.
God forbid. But originally, during the negotiations before Ozorn was deposed, he put a marriage proposal on the table for Kadar and Callison, but Callison was, like, 12 at the time. But Callison is probably 16 now, I think. I don't remember.
So maybe it was just like a general, like, it wouldn't look good in terms of the kind of marriage that you would anticipate making for her or whatever it was. But it was essentially like his own daughter wanted to train as a page and he said no.
Yeah. He talked her out.
And Thiat was real mad, which I appreciate. Yeah. That they included that detail.
Well, because Thiat is commander of like her own force, and the thought that her daughter doesn't fight. But there's a lot more things going on behind the scenes that Kel doesn't know about, and thus we as a reader don't know about. True. And there's something that Kel says is that good kings are seldom nice men. Yeah. And John tries to do his best by his people, and sometimes that means that he has to make these really hard decisions that make him seem like a not nice person. Right.
I guess I don't know. I'm reading this and I'm I feel like I'm reading this and I'm struggling to wonder if, okay, so in the 21st century United States, I often, as we are on the eve of the election, I often feel like the Democrats lose so much by being more willing to compromise than the Republicans pretty much always are.
If you keep compromising, you keep moving right.
Exactly. And I get that vibe from Jonathan. Yeah. I think that I am not sure I believe he needs to compromise as much as he does in order to rule effectively.
I believe that, and I could agree with that. Yeah. We just don't see enough of Callison for me to really, like, form an opinion of what's going on. Like, we see a lot of Roald because he's one of the pages when we first start, and he's a very interesting character. He is nothing like his father. Yeah. Like, when Jonathan was a page, he was like, I form my own squad, I have my favorites, fuck you, fuck that guy in particular.
Right, and Roald does not do that. He's like, I am going to spend an equal amount of time with all of the pages.
Except maybe slightly less with Joran.
Right, but like slightly less. Like not so much less that like he could like tell his dad like the prince doesn't like me.
Yeah, exactly. And Roald really cares about not using his power. Jonathan didn't care about that at all.
No,
He
Jonathan
his power
like
at a drop.
Jonathan like explicitly like I'm not going to complain. Jonathan explicitly abused his power with Roland in particular, I think.
Yeah.
And again, you know, fine, but I don't blame you.
A bully. That was fine.
Yeah, like,
but Roald thinks about these things very carefully. He's a very thoughtful young man.
Yes, which is interesting. Maybe he'll be a good king.
I think he will be, especially getting married to Shinkokami.
Right.
Another element that we're introduced to is that there is this arranged marriage between Prince Roald and a Yamani princess, Yamani being the stand-in culture for Japanese culture.
Yes.
Which Kel was immersed in for a good chunk of her life.
Right, because her, I guess, father was the ambassador.
Yep.
Basically.
He brokered a treaty between Tortal and Yamani, Yamani Islands. Meh.
Right.
And also her mother saved some sacred relics from attacks by pirates.
While they were there.
Oh, I love Elaine of Mindolin. She is amazing.
Yes. And it also is really, like, it's really cool that it also, like, Kel actually learned some fighting skills because there are certain fighting skills that are standard for Yamani noblewomen.
Yep, fighting with Naginata.
Right, yeah. And so and I really like that eventually when she needs to have, like, a long weapon that she, like, has, like, the, like, Yamani glaive that she learned how to fight with as a child. And she's like, can I use this? And they're like, okay.
Yeah. Raoul is just like, that's amazing.
That's so cool. He's like, yeah, what? That's awesome.
I love Raoul.
Right? He's great. Raoul's so great.
Raoul is a feature in this entire quartet. He shows up in Page.
Yeah.
And again throughout. I'm trying to remember how often he showed up in Page. No, he showed up at the end of First Test. That's what it was. And then he showed up like
fairly briefly. Yes, because I think he sees so that first test ends with like she basically like while the pages are on their like summer thing, she ends up basically leading the other pages in a fight against the Spidrin, the immortals, who are giant fucking horror spiders.
Yup, I would nope out so hard. I'd be like, you know what, this was fun. This was a good time. Thanks for making me feel like shit all the time. This is the thing that makes me leave.
And like demonstrates real like leadership and command skills, which will be something that will like continue to be a big theme increasingly as she continues in her training.
Yeah, definitely. Time and time again, she proves that she is just as good, if not better, than the boys. She has a head on her shoulders. The boys start to come to her for help with schoolwork.
Yeah,
she has
she's really good at math, I think.
She's really good at math. She loves it.
There's also this funny bit where she's in like the etiquette class and she like snorts a little when she gets the book, and the master's like, "What? You think you're better than everybody?" And she's like, "No, my dad wrote this book."
Like literally, my father wrote the book on this. That's his name, Piers of Mindolin, right there. And Kelladry of Mindolin. Have we met?
It's very cute.
It was very good. Just every time they try to like shut her down, she's just like, no. Just no. I refuse.
Oh, so the other characters. So Kel she's like on this kind of anti-bullying campaign. She also like gets a lot of like animal friends, and there's this like sense of first of all, there's this interesting bit that basically because of Dane, the wild mage who is the center of the Immortals Quartet, being around, her magic has essentially like made the animals like more sentient, more like human.
They think like humans now.
Yeah, like they think more like humans.
Yeah, their thoughts are more organized.
Yes, yeah. And so like the animals, and so like because of that, even though Kel doesn't have that magic, she ends up like making all of these like connections with animals that are like human-like in certain ways.
Yeah.
Including there's her horse, Peach Blossom,
I love Peach Blossom.
Yeah, is like the horse that she takes, even though like she knows that he's like kind of like too big for her and is like hard to control.
He's mean.
And he's mean. And then like Dane like chats with him and they like broker a compromise and then they're best friends. And I really like it.
There are so many moments where Kel is talking about her relationship with her horse and how Peach Blossom is her hidden temper. Like, Peach Blossom
Yeah.
is the self that she doesn't show to the world. And I think that
Mhm.
is very accurate. I think that's exactly
Yes.
what Peach Blossom is.
Yeah. My sense is that this is something that like was presented as being something that like in Yamani culture it's often considered to be not proper to like have very overt emotional displays. And so like having grown up in that culture, that is something that like comes naturally to her to like not let her temper come out in really obvious and explicit ways, right? That she's like very calm even in extremely trying situations.
And also she's bullied for that because she's
Right.
able
They call
to
her the lump.
Yeah, she's able to school herself into stillness. But if she wasn't able to do that, then they would call her hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
So she wouldn't be able to win no matter what. And that is
right,
what bullying is about.
Right. And also misogyny.
Yeah.
Because she specifically can't win no matter what because she's a woman.
Exactly. It's very frustrating and upsetting. Fortunately, at the end of first test, she can stay because Lord Wilden, like, looks at everything she's done and is just like, no, she did the things.
Yeah.
She passed the exams.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that I think Wilden is a really interesting character in that like he comes off initially as this like basically like shitty misogynist villain, but like as you increasingly see more of him, like he fundamentally is like, I don't want to say that he's like fundamentally like fair exactly because he clearly was like unfair in terms of like how he initially saw her, but that he is somebody who like ultimately weighs people by what they do.
Yeah.
And so even despite the fact that like he has what are undoubtedly like shitty, gross prejudices, you know, it's something that happens in real life that prejudiced people, they actually like meet a human who is like the thing that they think they don't like or don't think is acceptable or you know, normal. And then they get to know that person and they're like, oh,
I was wrong.
Yeah. And like he actually like he changes because he knows Kel and comes to respect her.
But unfortunately, he's really bad at expressing that change. So
yes, he is.
Nobody knows that he has changed his mind about her.
Oh, no. Including Kel. That Kel, like, keeps thinking, like, oh, he keeps, like, telling me to do this because he keeps, like, doing these things because he hates me and he doesn't respect me. And it's, like, actually, like, the opposite. Like, including, like, when, I guess in Squire, that he keeps, like, jousting against her.
Yeah. And Cleon's just like, do you want to die a virgin? I can fix this.
And she thinks that he's doing it like to teach her a lesson, and he does beat her, but then after he's like, overall good job, here's a tip.
He gives her advice. He's like, I wouldn't have started you in your third year, but Lord Raoul was right to try. Like, you're doing good. Raise your shield more, please.
Yeah.
And the second time, she doesn't get knocked out.
Yeah.
She stays in the saddle. She's knocked silly.
Right, and he still wins, but also, like, Raoul basically says, like, yeah, I wouldn't joust against Lord Wilden because I know he'd win.
I haven't jousted against him in 10 years, and that was the last time I was unseated. I'm not crazy. Oh, goodness. I think it's really important that we talk about Lalassa.
Yes, I love Lalassa so much.
She's really great.
Yeah.
She is Keladri's very shy, very nervous maid that Gower brings to her. She's Gower's niece, and
Gower is like the palace assigned servant for Kel.
And he's just like, she's very shy and she needs somebody to take care of her, and I trust you. I know that you're going to do the right thing. Please protect, like, my only family in the world.
Yeah. Well, and also there is indication, I think, that she had prior to that some kind of traumatic experience based on, like, a one-line thing, I think, potentially, certainly rape, but I think potentially also incest based on, like, a one-line thing.
We find out that her brother had assaulted her. Yeah. And her parents just, like, didn't believe her, would not care. And then all of her family were killed by raiders, so she had to, like, make her way to Chorus to be with her only family, which was Gower. Yeah. And Gower had been labeled by the family as, like, the black sheep because he had odd ideas about respecting women. Oh.
Right? Oh, no.
What strange ideas, Gower. And, like, because she's so shy and she's been traumatized and she has PTSD, like, she can't serve in, like, a mixed setting, really. Like, being around men is really traumatizing for her.
Right. And especially because, as I think the books make really clear, there is essentially a kind of ever-present threat of sexual assault
Yeah.
for palace maids who the elite men in the palace see as essentially being sexually available to them.
Yeah. And even serving Kel doesn't save Lalassa. She's assaulted more times after that. Unfortunately, Kel is nearby and is able to come to the rescue.
Right.
But what if she hadn't been?
Right, exactly. And I also, I mean, I love that Kel, like, trains her to defend it, like, trains her in self-defense, basically.
Yeah, and tells Lalassa, I know it scares you, I don't care, you have to learn this.
Yeah, and I love that, like, so eventually we have, like, Lalassa manages to, like, throw Kel, and she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, you're going to fire me. And Kel's like, no, this is great, like, great job, I'm so impressed.
Because Lalassa's, I feel like Lalassa never had a friend until Kel.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. And there's so many really good scenes. Lalassa's there to talk Kel through getting her period and also, like, developing her breasts. And Lalassa's just like, good news, you're a woman now. And Kel's just like, fuck.
Ugh. She's like, I don't have fucking time for this.
And then she cries. There's a really sweet scene between Kel and Lalassa where Kel's crying and Lalassa says something about how, like, Kel's so strong and she never cries. Like, not even when her terrible, terrible horse steps on her foot. And Kel's just like, he doesn't mean it.
And also she's like, am I gonna be like this every month?
Oh, Kel.
And
Kel
I'm like,
had
oh,
it
honey,
a
I feel
little
you.
easier than Alana. Because she knew, she was prepared. Her mom definitely did tell her. But she was just like,
she got, like, a warning, at least. And also, like, having Lalassa there is nice. Like, that she, like, had, like, a, like, slightly older girl who is, like, able... Because Lalassa is, like, I think, like, a few years older than Kel.
Yeah, I think she's 16 to Kel's 12.
Yeah.
I want to say. And, like, it's never explicitly said in the books, but Lalassa is gay.
Right? Like, she, like, has a lot of sleepovers with her lady friend.
Yeah, with Tian. And, like, they run the shop together. Like, I see.
Yeah. And also, that, like, Lalassa's, like, really good. Like, she's, you know, just, like, fixing up and, like, sewing Kel's clothing. But then it's increasingly clear that, like, she's really good at this.
Yeah.
And they, like, put aside they put aside money, and she, like, is able to open her own dress shop, and she's making dresses for the queen, and it's so nice.
It's really good. I'm very happy that Lalassa gets her happily ever after.
I am too.
And just, nothing bad can happen to Lalassa.
Yes. Well, and that's, like, the big drama of, that's the big climax of the second book, is that somebody kidnaps, it's, like, obviously Joran, but we don't officially find that out until the next book, but clearly it's Joran. Joran kidnaps Lalassa and also Kel's dog, Jump, who is also delightful. There's a lot of delightful animals.
I love Jump.
So he, like, kidnaps them, and Kel is afraid of heights and has been, like, trying to tackle this, but it's a struggle, but kidnaps them and takes them to the top of Baylor's Needle, which, you know, it's really tall. Yeah. It's a really tall tower. And she has to not only, like, climb up to get them, but then also she has to go down by way of, like, this, like, side stair, which is, like, totally in the open air, which my mom's afraid of heights, or she's like, actually been very impressive at, like, getting over it. But, like, you know, for a long time was very afraid of heights. She would, like, fucking murder somebody rather than have to go down something like that.
Yeah, I can feel that. I like being high up.
Uh-huh.
I do not like the prospect of falling.
Right.
Like, if I don't feel stable, that's when the fear starts to kick in. But if I'm on something that's, like, I know that I'm not going to fall off of this thing, then I'm not scared.
Right. Like, I wouldn't say I have a fear of heights at all, but, like, even with that never having been something that bothers me, like, this staircase that, like, it's open air, and it also seems like it's like every now and then, like, there's, like, oh, this stair is just, like, rusted through and doesn't exist anymore. Like, fuck, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, and, like, there's 3 in a row, and
so she's, like, carrying, and, like, the dog is hurt, I think, and she's, like, carrying him. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's very trying and very upsetting. And Lalassa the whole time is just trying to, like, talk her up and, like, I knew that you would come for me. You are not like any other noble that I've ever met. Nobles don't give a shit. You actually care. And you have showed up time and time again. And I always knew that I could trust you.
And of course they were kidnapped. So basically, so the pages now have these like exams that they have to take before becoming a squire.
Yeah.
Which also seems to have been something that's like instituted because like they're like, clearly Alana like only got this because of magic. So like clearly we need like more tests. And she's about to like miss these big examinations. And so because of that, they basically like did this to make her miss them.
Yeah. Her options were attend the tests and then have everyone find out that she shirked her duty to her servant, who she's supposed to care for and protect, or miss the tests and have to repeat all 4 years as a page.
Right, that's potentially what could happen. And also that, like, in addition to that, everyone would find out that she shirked her duty, also that, like, she, I think, is also genuinely worried, what if something happens to them, like, that I could have prevented by going earlier?
Like, what if Lalassa rolled out into the open air and fell off the platform?
Right. And well, she doesn't initially know what the deal is. Like, what if, like, if I don't call, like, if, like, nobody comes within an hour, what if somebody just murders them? Like, she has no way of knowing that wouldn't happen.
Exactly. And, like, Kel is too caring to let something like that happen to Lalassa. Like,
or jump for that matter.
Or like, jump, or anyone. Like, if she was given a note saying, like, there is a stranger at the top of a tower and you have to miss your examinations or else they will die, she'd be like, well, I guess I'm missing these examinations.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
She would not think twice.
And they do, like, allow her to then take her exams after they find out the extenuating circumstances.
Exactly.
And she, of course, passes.
Which is fair to her.
Yes. One of the things I was really thinking about at the end of the second book, in a lot of ways, the stakes are much smaller than they are in most of the, like, climactic moments of the Song of the Lioness quartet. Because, like, a lot of those are basically, like, if, like, you don't do this thing, the entire kingdom is, like, ruined forever.
Yeah. Whereas for Kel, it's much more personal and much more, like, on the ground. Alana was an instrument of fate. Whereas Kel is an instrument of her own fate.
Yes.
And while her experience as a knight will definitely make it easier for other women to go for their shield and for other women to learn to fight, she's not doing this because the goddess came to her and told her that she had to do it. She's doing this because that's who she is.
Yeah, that anything she does is entirely, like, very self-directed, essentially.
But the stakes do raise, like, significantly in book 4.
Yeah, they're just true. But the other thing is that even with the stakes in some ways being lower, there are ways in which these books seem much darker because I think they reckon with the realities of misogyny, they reckon with class, they reckon with sexual assault in ways that The Song of the Lioness really doesn't.
Yeah. Because Kel has a lot more to do with people outside of her realm of nobility.
Right. That, I mean, Alana knows the rogue, but, like, they're kind of their own thing.
Yeah. Kel interacts with servants. She interacts with everyday people all the time.
Yeah.
And she takes her duty as a noble to protect people very seriously.
Yeah.
In book 3, we see a lot of situations where Kel feels that she's failed in her duty because we have one of the squires who assaulted Lalassa comes out of his ordeal ready to make a confession, and he confesses that he was behind a series of rapes and assaults that happened a couple of years before. And if Kel had reported it, then it might not have happened.
Yeah.
Like, if Kel had reported his assault on Lalassa, then he might not have gone on to rape those women.
And it is this, like, really upsetting moment, and it's, you know, it's something that, like, feels very real and relevant in terms of the kind of things that people have to grapple with.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of, like, I mean, because Lalassa asks her not to report it.
Right. It reminds me of, there's actually an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine that covers this.
Yeah.
Where the conversation is between Rosa and Amy is very much in favor of, like, no, report it, fight against this because you deserve justice. And Rosa is like, take the money and run because he's not going to get punished for it and you deserve to get something out of it. Unfortunately, even though they do fight it, she doesn't win. She gets fired. And she gets fired.
Yeah.
And it would have been better for her to take the money and just leave.
And yeah, and the loss is basically, like, nothing's gonna really happen. Like, he'll probably at most get basically, like, a slap on the wrist and like, he'll get, like, a fine, maybe. Like, he'll have to pay you a fine if you report him. Like, that's all that's gonna happen.
Which is something else that did happen. They finally found out that it was Joran who paid the men to kidnap Lalassa.
Right. And he has to pay a large-ish fine.
Yeah. And all it means is that that's how much it costs to commit the crime.
Right, exactly. Like, and especially for like very wealthy nobles, like for Joran, it's like it's clear that for his family, like it's a drop in the bucket, essentially.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah.
And the judge tried to like lay on as much as possible to like make him feel it, but there
Yeah.
was only so much he could do.
And that is also like, it's really interesting as we see the Chamber of the Ordeal as having this much more activist role than it seems to have in Song of the Lioness. Because we see, so Vincent comes out and so he's like confesses, and also like in relation to that, like he keeps physically feeling the blows that he inflicted upon these women.
Yep.
So it's this like permanent physical consequence, either permanent or like until he confesses and is punished, or like I don't know exactly how it works, but like
I think it's until like every single blow he's ever doled out has been felt upon him.
Yeah, which is intense, but also like fucking good.
Yeah, it's poetic justice, baby.
Yeah, and Joran just straight up dies.
As he deserves.
Like, okay, fine, sure, whatever.
Like, yes, good.
Which is also like, I was like surprised because I was like, I know Joran's gonna like come back and do something else shitty, and then it's like, oh, nope, bye.
I actually like once thought about like an alternate universe, because sometimes I write fanfic to make myself sad. I mean, who doesn't, right? And I was just like, oh, what if I wrote a fanfic about Joran not dying, and then he decides to turn on the crown and joins up with Scanra to do like, all the terrible things.
That's the kind of thing that I think I like expected, essentially, would have been something like that.
That he would just turn on the crown entirely and join up with Scanra and also help in murdering children. Because he's awful. God, I hate Joran of Stone Mountain. One of my friends wanted to like cosplay him, and I was like, don't do it. He doesn't deserve it. He does not deserve the attention.
Absolutely not.
Do not give him the attention.
Yeah.
Not when Nealon of Queen's Cove exists.
Right? Yeah.
And Domaton, ugh.
Yeah. Neil's hot cousin.
Yes.
Hot Neil's hot cousin.
It's just a gorgeous family all around.
I know, right? Which is also funny because so like Neil's father is Duke Baird, who we meet as just like the palace healer. Alana like interacts with him like not extensively, but like a little here and there. And then it's like, oh, like was Duke Baird secretly really hot the whole time? And Alana just never noticed or commented on it because she likes older men, but not that older.
What I like is when Kel meets him and talks to him, and he's like, the Lady Elaine that I knew was quite formidable. Please remember her. Remember me to her. Like, we used to dance together. And Kel's just like, I'm sorry, you what?
You what?
Apparently, Elaine wouldn't have been a Mindolin at the time.
Right.
Elaine passed on her love for the Queen's Cove men, apparently.
Apparently.
Oh my god. But I also really like that Joran is like the most beautiful man that Kel has ever seen, but he's also a piece of shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like normally my type is the biggest piece of shit or the biggest Hufflepuff, but I was never once into Joran. I was just like, nope.
It's like, oh no, definitely not. Not that.
Rosto, yes. Joran, no. Not about that life.
Oof, yeah, no, that's bad. He's bad. Joran sucks.
He's so bad. But even though Kel has these moments where she's confronted with the unfairness of the law and how cruel it can be to the people who it's supposed to protect, she does get the courage to stand up to the king and tell him that law fucking sucked.
And he's like, yeah, no, actually, you're right. And they, like, make a deal that, like, you know, they're going to, he's, like, basically, like, it'll be a slow process, but, like, you're right, we're gonna try and change it.
And that's one of the reasons why whenever we want to shit on Jonathan, I'm like, but we have to remember that moment.
That was a good moment. I'll give Jonathan that. He, as I said, Jonathan is, like, the Democratic Party.
Yes.
You have to vote for him. Obviously, he's better than the alternative. Everybody, please. I guess by the time this gets released, the election will be over. But I really hope y'all went out and voted for Joe Biden and that he won. Because if not, things are real bad.
And then, if he did win, we still continue to protest and stand up against the things that are unfair. We still have to protest because still, like, he's not, you know, he's not perfect and he's not going to do everything you want and he's going to compromise too much. But, you know, if you push him, he's going to do some good things and a lot less active evil. Yeah. Like Jonathan. So that's King Jonathan. King Jonathan is Joe Biden. Everybody. Yeah. I can't wait to tell this to my husband. I have to introduce you two. You'll get along. You'll get along real well.
Definitely.
But it's moments like that that make me think that whenever Jonathan does something that is unfair, it's because there's something going on behind the scenes that he's orchestrating. And he's like, I will let you have this unfair thing because it will help me get this more fair thing later.
Right. Yes.
So, like, by letting Kel go on probation, he's at least getting Kel that chance.
Right.
And that's all she needs. She needs that foot in the door so she can change Wilden's mind about her.
Right. And also, I mean, ultimately, I think the fact that Kel got through despite being treated inherently unfairly, despite, like, the bullshit that, like, she and Alana can't ever meet each other, despite all of that trash, she still got through. And the fact that she did that is going to make it a lot harder to argue against women being eligible to train as knights.
Especially since she doesn't have the gift.
Exactly, right. So nobody can make any claims that it's all that, like, oh, it was just magic.
Yeah.
Which also, by the way, are such bullshit because, like, magic doesn't fucking work that way. Like,
you know how magic works.
Like, if Alana was, like, using the gift to, like, win every fight, like, she would just, like, drop like a fucking rock at the end of it. Yeah. Every time.
It's just, you guys know how magic works. It's something you see every day.
Yeah.
Why are you like this?
Men are the worst. Men are trash, everybody.
But it's also good for her to be squire to Lord Raoul, who's constantly in the public eye.
Yes, and I love Raoul. So I think we talked about this a little in the last episode. Raoul, I certainly, like, assumed was being set up as a gay character. In that, like, there's a lot of, like, emphasis on the fact that, like, he's not married, and everybody comments on this, and including, like, when he first says that he's going to have Cal as his squire, one of his, like, second-in-command people says, like, you know they're going to be, like, saying you're sleeping with her immediately. And he's like, yeah, they've been saying I'm sleeping with other dudes for years. It's fine, whatever, who cares?
He just doesn't care. I love Raoul. He's so, like, playful and kind and caring, and he, like, believes in doing a good job, and he believes in protecting people, and he fights with Jonathan.
Yes, I really like that Raoul. I always liked Raoul. Raoul's always, like, really charming. I really liked that. I feel like Raoul really, like, grew up to be the best possible version of the person that he was as a young man.
Yes, I agree. Like, we had Raoul defending Alan and, like, being very into protecting Alan.
Right, and also, like, that, yeah.
Definitely had a crush on Alan.
Yeah.
And just, like, growing up to be someone who defends other people and believes the best of other people.
Yeah.
He turned the King's Own, which was originally supposed to be, like, a decorative command fighting force, into, like, a real fighting force. Like, they actually
right, and, like, they're
things.
really, like, on the front lines and are really essential. And, yeah, and that's really impressive. And, yeah, and he ultimately, so, you know, canonically, I'm going to assume that Raoul is bi.
Yeah.
Because he ultimately gets together with Bury.
Which is a really cute relationship, I do have to say.
Yeah.
And Kel orchestrated that shit.
Right. And I also, like, you know what? I like that, you know, he likes a woman who can fight.
Yeah. That's all that he really cares about.
Yeah.
Just, like, someone who can speak their mind, who can defend themselves.
Yeah.
Who he can easily talk to. That's all he needs.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so good together.
Raoul also is adorable when so Kel has in Squire has this relationship with Cleon, one of the older squires, which is very cute.
It is very cute. He starts off, like, making Kel, like, fetch things for him because that's the accepted hazing practice.
Right. It's like he, like, light hazes her, and he, like, and while he's, like, light hazing her, he's like, Kel, like, oh, pearl of pages, my dove, whatever.
He uses all this flowery language towards her. And then when she's no longer, like, eligible for hazing, he still uses that language. And then he gets very weird about it when somebody calls him out.
Right. He's like, I didn't do anything.
It's like, what? Nobody noticed anything. And Kel's just like, oh, I know you're teasing. He's like, yes, definitely. It's exactly what was happening.
It's just a joke.
I'm going to leave now.
Yeah, so they get together for a little while, and I really like that.
It was very cute. And Raoul is just like, do we need to talk about sex?
Right, I love that Raoul is like, he's like, do we need to have the sex talk? And Kel is like, no, it's cool, I did it with my mom. And he's like, oh, thank Jesus.
Like, we can if you want. I'm here for you. And she's like, no.
He's like, I understand this is my job. I will do this. And she's like, but he's like always also clearly like so relieved when she says no.
But he does give her really practical advice about being a
Yeah.
woman in command.
Yes, and I really like that. And I like, and he uses the example of Bury, and it's all like as like somebody who like has that experience.
Yeah, because in the Queen's writers groups, women rise to command really easily. And if they take a lover within their groups, it can foster like jealousy. It can create a lot of really bad blood. And it gives Kel something serious to think about.
Right. And it is like, and it's something that I feel like the way Raoul presents it, he is, I think, acknowledging that it's a double standard and that a man in command over women would not have that same experience. And he's not justifying it, but he's like, he is saying like, this is the way it is.
Yeah. This is something that you might encounter, and I want you to be ready for it.
Yeah.
Rather than be blindsided and not know what to do.
Exactly.
You know, and that's one of the ways that Kel and Raoul are so good for each other.
They really are. I really like their like mentorship relationship. I think it's really nice.
You're so good.
Yeah. I also, I like her relationship with Kel, and I think it's really, or her relationship with Cleon, and I think it's really nice. But I also really like that she like hasn't seen him in a long time, and then she sees him again, and she kind of realizes that she's not sure she's still that into him. And also then he's like, by the way, I like have to do my arranged marriage. Like it's a money thing. I like have no choice. Basically, I have to do it like tomorrow. Yeah. And she's like a little relieved. And she basically says like, I don't think that like a romantic relationship is my priority right now.
And it's not. And that's totally okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be her priority now. It doesn't have to be her priority ever. As a happily single person, I really appreciate that. I think we talked off air a little bit about the possibility that she is, a romantic potentially, or like gray romantic or something.
Yeah, I think that has been confirmed as canon. But, it is what you make of it.
Yeah.
Like, once it is out of the author's hands, you have control over this shit.
Right, yeah.
You read this how you want to.
Yeah, and I really like that, like, as much as I also, like, I appreciate the emphasis on sex positivity in Alana, that, like, she has various lovers, and, like, there's not any, like, judgment of that. I mean, from the author, there's judgment occasionally from other characters, but, like, in the context of the book, like, it's just, like, very casual. It's just, like, very, like, casually, like, yes, and, like, this is, like, what she's doing and the choices that she's making, and they are all fine.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I like that, but I also really like in this book the fact that, like, she doesn't need to have a romantic relationship because, like, that's not what she wants to focus on, at least for right now, and that's also fine.
Which is a huge departure from Alana, where, like, everybody was pairing off.
Yeah, and in this, like, there's a bit of pairing off at the end where we have Raoul and Bury. Obviously, like, we have, like, Roald's arranged marriage with Shinko Kami, but also Neil gets together with one of the Yamani ladies whose name
Yuki.
Yes, Yuki. Yeah, which is very nice also.
Yeah.
So, so there's like a little bit of like pairing off, but like not, but there's like not too much of it.
So much happens in Lady Night. Like, we haven't even touched on Lady Night.
I know, right. Although the one thing I'm going to say before we get into Lady Night is that she does finally meet Alana, and also, like, she's had this, like, mysterious benefactor for years, who, reading this, I'm like, cool, this is obviously Alana, but Kel finds out that it's Alana, so.
There's a moment at the end of Squire where Kel and Alana finally meet, and
it's really sweet.
It's so sweet, and it makes me really emotional, because Alana is just like, God's blessed you, you are real. And just talking about how every time Kel went out onto the jousting field, there were girls in the stands watching her, talking about her style and the things that she did. Oh my God. And it's just, my heart.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's really nice. And I like that, like, the book isn't like I think it's a good choice that the book is not, like, it makes sense plot-wise, but also I think it makes sense in terms of, like, not having too much of a focus on that past character. Like, I think it makes sense that, like, Alana is not, like, a super prominent, like, mentor figure for her.
Yeah. And honestly, Alana doesn't have as much to offer Kel in mentorship in terms
Right.
of like the practicality of being a knight.
Or in terms of like what Kel's specific like skills are.
Yeah.
Like they ultimately like have very different skills, and Raoul is actually really, in terms of like the fact that she has these like command skills, Raoul is clearly the best person to mentor her.
Yeah, exactly. And like Neil was going to go to university to become a healer, but because 2 of his brothers died in service to the crown,
Right.
he left so he can become the new knight on behalf of Queen's Cove.
And actually, Alana is in a lot of ways, I feel like, a really good fit for him, because she's somebody who has figured out how to have her magic and her knight skills like work together.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like that is really helpful for him, in addition to like that maybe she'll like whip him into shape in terms
Yes.
of actually being like better at some of the like military stuff, but I feel like she won't let him, that she'll like call him out on his shit.
They have a really good temperament matching because
Yeah.
they're both like very quick with their tongues.
Yeah.
Like Neil will say whatever is on his mind, and so will Alana, and Alana won't take any shit from anyone, least of all her squire.
Yes.
And when you see them together, it's just very good and very well executed.
It is. Yeah, so now we should talk about Lady Knight, because a lot happens.
So much happens in Lady Knight. Kel is finally a knight.
And she got a task. She got a
Yeah.
little thing extra from the Chamber of the Ordeal. Thanks, Chamber of the Ordeal.
What a pal. Constantly sending her nightmares about it, too.
Right, yeah. And so, like, it shows her this, like, nice, fun man who is murdering children and using them to fuel, like, robots.
This character, the Nothing Man,
He's creepy as fuck.
he's like a weird-ass necromancer, and he doesn't need the souls of children to fuel his
They
monster
could be the souls of
machines.
anybody, but he
Yeah.
likes using the souls of children.
Because he's creepy and a pedophile.
Yup, it's really fucking creepy.
It's really bad. Oh my god. And Kel, the second she like sees this man, she's like, tell me where this is happening. I will wreck his shop. I will
Yeah.
fuck him up so bad.
But she basically doesn't get to just go off and, like, murder him, because she is, a war starts and she is given, or, the war has started and she is given an official position. So Lord Wilden is the one who is assigning her, and he assigns her to run this refugee camp. And this is another one of these really interesting moments, because she assumes that it's because he doesn't trust her to actually like be a real knight and do that real kind of knightly work and like military work. But he basically says it's because I actually trust you to be in command, which she has to be, but also in addition, you're the only person that I think will actually give a shit about these people enough to do a good job.
Exactly. This is another one of those situations where Wilden is just so bad at expressing his like belief in Kel, where he's like, oh, ghost apples, I really have to like express my feelings to you. God damn it. Why can't you just figure it out?
I hate talking about emotions.
Why do you make me do this, Mindolin? And like you said, it is really because she's the only one who will actually care about these people and do right by them. Whereas, like, if Merrick is in charge, yeah, he could probably command okay, but are the people going to be his first concern? Probably not.
Right. That there is, I mean, it's very much emphasized in these books, and this is another way in which, like, things are darker, and that it is really emphasized throughout that fundamentally the nobles see common people as like less people than they are.
Yeah. And Kel has to deal with that attitude from commoners as well, expecting her to be that way.
Right. And then she isn't, and it is a surprise.
And then there are the merchants.
Yeah.
When the merchants show up, I haven't fully reread Lady Knight yet, but I do have a clear memory of the merchant showing up and this guy like insulting Kel straight to her face, makes some comment about her being a slut, and also says something about her periods, and she's just like, yeah, okay. You get to be on latrine duty for the rest of your stay here, basically.
Congratulations. And then he's like, that's bullshit. And she's like, why? I've been on latrine duty. It's fine. Go do your job.
And just, I love it.
And she's also very much like, I've heard this shit before.
Yeah, like, do you think you can say anything to me that I have not already heard?
Yeah, like, do you think you're original, my friend? You're not original.
Yeah, no. when all these people... Oh, wait, no. Before we talk about that, we have to talk about Toby.
Yes, so she picks up, like Kel picks up strays. Like at this point she has like
wherever she goes.
Like she has this like flock of birds, of sparrows who just like moved into her room, and now they're like they're fucking spies.
They are.
The sparrows are just spies now.
She sends them into the woods to scout for her. They're the ones that found the Spidrin in the first place.
Yep.
They're the ones that sounded the alarm when they were attacked by that first monster. But she has all these animals.
Yeah.
And she encounters Toby, who is a young boy who has been badly abused by the man who owns him, I guess.
Or who's I think technically it's like essentially like it's like a servant. It's like a service contract.
It's like an indentured servant, I think.
And especially like it's pretty common. Like in terms of like the real medieval context, it would be pretty common that you would have these like service contracts that essentially like are commending very young children in service to a master who like is expected to provide for them, but also can like basically make them do kind of whatever. And there's not necessarily a lot of oversight in terms of like how well they're providing for them.
Right. And Kel finds out exactly how bad this kid has it. And she's just like, yeah, no, I'm not letting this happen.
And buys the contract. And also like he's the kid is like has like a little like horse magic situation.
And Peach Blossom does not step on him.
Yeah. Because she first I think she finds him with Peach Blossom and she's like, fuck, this kid is gonna die.
You are going to be murdered. I am so sorry.
And then he doesn't. But yeah, so we have Toby, who is like her new stray, who is very charming.
There's a moment when Kel like takes in Toby. She decides like this kid is hers now. She has Neil like look him over and like heal all of his bruises, his breaks, everything. And Neil then goes and finds the guy who did it and puts magic on him.
Yes.
So that way, if this man ever hits anyone else, he'll also feel it. And it was inspired by the chamber. And Neil is just so intense about it. And I'm just like, Neilin of Queen's Cove.
Yes. Neilin of Queen's Cove.
I'm very into this.
He's so great.
He's so good. And just, the sense of like justice that Kel inspires in these other people, because I don't think necessarily Neil might have been that way before he met Kel.
Yeah.
It's seeing the way that she is about people that inspires other people to do the same.
Right. And that's also related to like, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why she's so good at command. And part is that she clearly has like that kind of like strategic mind. Like she thinks the right way to like organize things for command, but it is also that she inspires people.
When she talks, people listen.
Yeah, like she is like there's a lot of very clear ways in which she is a good commander and a good leader.
Yeah. And I don't know why Lord Wilden was fucking surprised when all of her people get kidnapped. She defied her commands and went after them.
Right. And it's like Raoul even like when he's like we see like Raoul talking to Wilden. And he's like, you gave her an order? What the fuck was the point of that? You know she's gonna go. Why the fuck did you tell her not to?
Why did you not just,
what's wrong with you?
Tie her up and throw her over a horse. Have you met her?
Right.
Like, you trained her for 4 years. What is wrong with you? And just, all the knights are like, well, we can't let this happen. We have to leave now.
Yeah.
Because they're so inspired by her. And, like, if she goes out and becomes a hero, then what the hell do they look like?
Yeah, it's so great. And she gets, and this brings her to the Nothing Man.
Who's so gross.
He's so gross and creepy. And he's also got, like, a gross, creepy dude who kidnaps kids for him. And he sucks, too. And she kills both of them.
Also awful. Because, like, the warlord Magger basically gave this guy this village to rule over.
Yeah.
And he,
that, you can take this children to murder children and to make my, like, cool robots.
And, it just,
It's ugh. And it's interesting when she kills him that he basically says, like, don't kill me. You want my servant. You want to, like, bring me back. And, I'll give my services to your king. Like, A, fuck that. Yeah, but B, also, like, I feel like Kel is basically like, I don't think Jonathan would do that, but I don't want to give him the temptation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to serve a king who would use your services, so how about we kill you?
Yep. Okay, also, so there is a cat, one of the additional, like, creatures. There is a cat who ends up, like, joining them for this, like, last, like, this, like, big, like, fight against Stedman and Blaze, the Nothing Man. And the cat, based on how it is described, sounds a lot like my cat in terms of, like, physical descriptions.
Aw.
And I, like, shrieked in horror when I thought the cat died, when it's, like, crucial in helping her fight Stenman, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the name of the guy.
And then, like, she brings the cat's body back, and it turns out it's not all the way dead, and they're able to heal the cat, and I was, like, fucking, like, sitting there sobbing. I'm like, Carmen, you're okay!
I think after what happened with Faithful, anytime a cat might die, she has to, like,
fuck.
fix it immediately. Because there's also a moment in The Immortals where a kitten dies, and,
right.
Dane,
yeah, I remember that.
like, uses her
There's
connection.
kittens in this, too, when like, the very beginning,
Yeah.
there's, like, a Spindren that she comes across, like, right before she starts her training, and she's, like, sitting there and, like, trying to fight it while it's, like, fucking, like, snacking on kittens out of a bag.
Like, popcorn. It's gross and terrible.
Yeah, so I feel like, she's got a lot to answer for in terms of cat deaths.
Oh, you might want to be careful reading Battle Magic.
Oh.
Oh no. Oh no.
Kitty.
But this village, when Kel finally reaches it, there is one girl left in it, and she's actually kind of a prophet. I think she's connected to the Chamber of the Ordeal.
Right, yeah.
And the chamber, like, speaks through her.
Or they're feeding into the same... I was wondering if they're connected or if they're, like, the same thing is speaking through both of them or something.
Maybe. We don't really know a lot about where the Chamber of the Ordeal comes from. I remember reading that it was a relic of the Old Ones.
Yes.
Because the palace was built on Old Ones.
Right. Ruins.
Yes, thank you. I was like, it's a word. I know words. It's okay. It is a relic of the Old One, so it could be that whatever she gets her prophesying from comes from the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. There's a lot about magic that we don't know in Tortall.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this girl, like, knew Kel was going to come and calls her the protector of the small, and Kel's like, that's dumb. Don't call me that.
She's like, that's a dumb fucking name. And it's like, that's the name of this quartet.
Which makes me very happy. I love when they, like, reference the title in a significant way.
Right.
And Kel's just like, that's stupid. Don't call me that.
It's always like, so like Arrested Development has that bit where somebody says Arrested Development and then, like, the narrator says, hey, that's the name of this show. And I do that I do that automatically every time you see the name of the title, like the name of the title in something that you're reading. I'm like, hey, that's the name of this book.
John and I go, they did the thing. That's what we do. But once everyone is rescued and all the people from her refugee camp, like, fight their way out, the kids who have been cleaned and groomed and given toys, it's just so upsetting.
Yes, and it's like, oh god, like, it's just so fucking creepy.
So bad. But all the kids escape.
Yes. All the kids get out, thank god.
There's no further child death that we have to witness. Because
also, like, the robots, like, it's fucking creepy. Like, you, like, kill these robots, right? And then, like, a little, like, ghost thing comes out of them, and it's like, Mama? And I, like, the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, hell no.
Nope. And I'm surprised that didn't come up in conversations with, like, Raoul and Miles and anyone else.
Right.
Like, talking about what's going on in the North. Just trying to figure out what kind of magic fuels these things. I feel like it's important for you to say, so I think it might have been the ghost of a child.
Yeah, like, that seems like a relevant thing to describe that
definitely
horrifying experience. Oh my god.
And then, like, that's it. Blyce is
dead. And she gets back, and she's like, well, I assume I'm gonna be, like, strung up on treason charges. And Wilden's like, no, I guess probably not. Start a new camp.
You'll be fine. I retroactively sent you to go get them, I guess.
Right.
Mindolin, I wish you'd been born a boy.
Right. And, and that is the thing that's interesting with Wilden, is that he still, like, is a deeply prejudiced person. And I can't say exactly that I like him, but I appreciate seeing him change for the better.
I like him better than I did in book 1.
Yes, that he, he's like the person who like voted for Trump who like gradually you've actually convinced and he's voting for Biden this time.
That is a very good comparison. I think that is it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else important that we have to talk about.
I think that's everything yeah.
Toby calls Kel mother at one point, and I'm just like, ugh, my heart.
Oh.
You sweet
so
child.
Cute. So sweet.
I think that's the only thing.
Toby. Just one more statement about Kel's strays is that it is worth mentioning that she like fucking like adopts a baby griffin.
Oh, we didn't talk about the griffin. I hate the griffin.
The griffin is like, she's like, well, I can't really do anything about it because like it won't like, let anybody else take it, but like it just like injures me literally every 5 seconds and like wrecks all of my shit. But I guess I'm stuck with it.
And she still manages to get attached to it. She still gets upset when it
has
to go home.
Like its parents come back and she's like crying and she's like, the fuck? What is wrong with me?
It's a little savage and I hate it.
It's like literally a monster.
The thing with the griffin is that if griffins smell their child on a human, they will kill them.
So like Dane has to like go and like talk to the parents to be like, okay, you're gonna smell it. You're gonna smell that there's a human, but I promise this one's okay. I promise. Please don't kill her.
She has been taking care of your child, just waiting to get it back to you.
Exactly. She took your kid from the people who stole the kid from you, and she just wants to bring the kid back, and she's good. It's fine. Please don't murder her.
And they don't. They, like, even give her, like, a whole bag of feathers, like...
And the feathers are helpful, because, like, when you're... So she, like, makes this, like, headband out of them, and that, like, allows you to, like, see magic or, like, distinguish when magic is being done.
To see the truth.
Yeah, to see the truth, to, like, distinguish, like, truth between, like, illusions that are created by magic. And so, like, at the end, it's actually crucial in allowing her to kill Blaise because he, like, creates all of these, like, fake versions of himself. But when she, like, puts, like, on, like, the feather headband, then she can, like, find the real one and stab him.
Yeah, and also griffin feathers are great on arrows because your arrows will fly truer.
Yeah, and, like, that's actually probably why the griffin baby was taken in the first place, right? Is because they're very valuable.
Also, like, it's impossible to lie near a griffin.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't.
Good deal. Yeah.
Griffins, very interesting. We learn a lot about them in The Immortals.
I look forward to revisiting The Immortals.
I'm very excited for, like, all of your thoughts on the ones that you haven't read yet.
I'm looking forward to, revisiting The Immortals and reading the others for the first time.
Especially when you get to, like, Circle of Magic, which is very different in terms of... like medieval history. Like there's less of a focus on kings and queens and knights, and it's more about nobility in a very Renaissance-y way, I want to say.
Okay. Interesting.
The ruler of the main country is a duke and not a king.
Okay, so it's like, that like Italian style.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is I'm just going to be obnoxious and pedantic. It's like that I would say is like a regional thing more than like a time thing. That like the Italian peninsula is divided in both the medieval and the early modern periods is divided into basically like city-states essentially, or like smaller polities that tend to be under the rule of a duke. And that's also true of like the Holy Roman Empire.
Which I think is very interesting. I know nothing about this. I'm just like, this is different. That's it. That's all I got.
Tortle is interesting in that I am not sure I have a clear statement on like if there's like a country it's supposed to be. I mean, I kind of just like vaguely assumed like, I don't know, England, because like whenever most people do medieval inspired fantasy, it's always fucking England.
Yeah.
But something that I came across when I was just doing some like general Googling is that some people have suggested that it's the Iberian Peninsula, which of course wasn't actually like Spain was not like one kingdom in the Middle Ages, but like we'll ignore that part. But it's like as if like that was actually like a kingdom, and then thinking of the Bazir as then like being the like Muslims who were still like living in the Iberian Peninsula and like ruling part of it for much of its history.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
I think Emlon is very similar to like Turkish. And there's like the Namornese, which are very I want to say Scandinavia, but that could be like not entirely right. Guess what is also not my forte.
And Scanra, I'm assuming, is Scandinavia based on
Yeah.
like the names of the people who are there.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, when you get to Emlon, I am particularly invested.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that at some point in the future, since I believe you have agreed to be my like Tamora Pierce
Yes, I am
correspondent
happy to
for
be
the
your
foreseeable future.
consultant.
Yes.
Like, I will talk about Tamora Pierce ad nauseum. I have like all of the books lined up on the fireplace. I have pictures of my husband's black cat draped over them. Like, it's very good.
Yeah.
I love her so much. One of my favorite things that she's ever said was that in the 60s and 70s, I could not be a feminist because to be a feminist, you had to be a lesbian or celibate, and I was neither. I love her.
Yeah.
When I grew up,
fun.
I would like to be Tamora Pierce.
Yeah. And yeah, I like, she seems like a good person.
She is. She's very kind. I once wrote a letter to Alana because I was doing this project where I wrote letters to fictional characters and talked about what I learned from them. And I wrote a letter to Alana, and she found it, and it made her really emotional.
Oh, that's so sweet.
She posted it on Tumblr, and she was like, if Alana read this, she would like get very choked up and then lock herself into a room so nobody could hear her cry.
Oh,
she's very sweet.
That's very sweet.
Do you want to do the vera et falso?
Yes. So what did they get right and what did they get wrong? So the first thing I will say is, if somebody actually studies pre-modern Japan, they should feel free to correct me. But I actually feel like the Yamani are, based on the knowledge that I do have, feel like a much more culturally like thoughtful portrayal, at least.
I would agree with that, especially since like Kel has so much deference for the Yamanis because that's where she was raised. There's never this sense that the Yamanis do anything like backwards or wrong. Anytime that somebody expresses that, it's very clear that it's a character we should not agree with.
Right, exactly. And in general, I like, from what I can tell, like it feels like a culture that is like adapted from like medieval or pre-modern Japan in a way that like feels thoughtful, and like she put in some research, and obviously like it's not identical, but it like is done in a way that I think is responsible.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those ways in which Tamora Pierce has improved over time.
Yeah.
With the Bazir we talked about, she didn't really do a great job.
And if we think about Serain as like the Mongols, potentially, that also wasn't great, so.
Yeah, like there wasn't a great amount of research for the people that she was drawing inspiration on. Whereas here, I think there was, because a Naginata is an actual thing. A glaive is an actual thing.
Yeah, so it's much more thoughtful. Yeah.
I would agree with that entirely.
I also really like that she takes baths, and everybody takes baths. And there's like an emphasis on like, we have this child and he's dirty, we have to bathe him. And I really appreciate this because medieval people, in fact, bathed much more often than we might think they bathed. There is a lot of discourse about like medieval people, they bathed like once a year, LOL, and just smelled all the time. And like, that's not true. You didn't necessarily bathe daily, but you'd probably bathe weekly-ish or a couple of times a week.
Yeah. And like, Kel, being a noble, having the access, would probably bathe more frequently.
Well, and also like doing the kind of heavy workout that she's doing, like it actually, like
it's a necessity at that point.
Right. Yeah. That actually like that really like rings true to me, that she like regularly bathes, and that there is like a recognition of like baths as being a normal thing that people do.
Yeah. There was actually a really good scene where she went to one of the public baths, and then the women in the bath thought that she'd been beaten by a man.
Yes! And they were like, we will help and protect you. And she's like, oh no, this is my fault.
I went jousting against Lord Raoul. I'm the one who fucked up here.
It's great. And yet I also like, public baths, like they're a real thing. Like people like would go to the public baths a couple of times a week. It's like a social experience.
This is definitely around the time that she started doing Circle of Magic as well. And in Circle of Magic, there is a lot of emphasis on different bathing cultures. Like some cultures do the public baths where there's no separation of gender, where everybody just bathes. And some people do the private baths, and some people do the separation. And one character is just like, I don't give a shit, just give me a bath.
Right. In medieval Europe, in medieval Western Europe, typically it would have been the public baths would have been gender divided. And also for reasons of like not wanting people of different faiths to socialize, they also would have been like religiously divided.
Yeah.
So there would have been like certain days on which like Muslims and Jews get to go to the baths. So they're not at the baths at the same time as Christians.
It's messed up.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves a bath.
Right.
Well, I prefer showers. That's just me.
Well, yeah. But yeah, and so it's like, yeah, you can only like go to the baths on these specific days because like you shouldn't be like because like there's this understanding of the public baths as a place where there's like socialization and people like coming into contact and chatting, and you don't want that kind of like normalcy and ease of relationship between Christians and non-Christians.
Yeah.
So they have to go to the bath on different days or go to different baths. It's not great. Also not great. The other thing that unfortunately this very much gets right is the threat of rape posed to maids. That this is, that they are an extremely vulnerable population. But of course, the thing that gets not entirely emphasized here because of the fact that we mostly are seeing this through Lalassa and Kel is her master, the biggest threat of rape to maids is probably from their own masters.
Yeah.
That there is a sense of their being sexually available. And also this is kind of referencing the fact that like, if somebody had raped Lalassa, the punishment would be that basically they'd have to pay a fine to Kel because Kel essentially owns her maid's sexual favors.
Yeah, and like her time as well.
Yeah.
So like time taken away from Kel.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that similarly, like, that was how, like, the rape of a servant would be punished, is, like, you would have to basically, like, pay their master.
Which is gross and terrible.
Yep. But, it is, but as I said, but unfortunately then the, like, associated problem is that the assumption is basically that, like, nobody is going to complain and there's not that much legal recourse that you have if as a woman servant you are raped by your own master.
Yeah, and I think getting the law changed was a really good first step toward giving servants that kind of recourse and that safety.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the punishment is no longer a fine, then it gives them a better shot at justice.
Right. But of course it's still, but there's still so many other issues. I mean, especially when you take into account that a lot of them probably do get raped by their own masters. That means that maybe they have legal recourse, but like they're going to then get fired.
Yeah.
Almost certainly. And like no one is going to then hire them because like they're the maid who ratted out her master.
Yeah. Which is messed up.
Yeah. It's obviously good that they're changing the law, but it certainly doesn't fix everything.
No. It's a start.
Yeah.
Just sad. Like, there's just so much about these books that are still relevant today, which is upsetting. Like, even though they're 20 years ago, it's still relevant.
It is. And and that's not necessarily a good thing.
No, it's not. It's upsetting. Like, the rape culture is still bad.
Yep, it's still kind of basically the same. I mean, this is actually a thing that I talk about a lot with things set in the Middle Ages or in medieval-inspired universes, is that there's this, like, look, everybody's just being raped all of the time, and this is, like, why it's worse to be in the Middle Ages than in the modern world. And I'm like, I feel like you're just basically trying to, like, make rape culture now seem, like, not as bad by, like, making it seem worse in the past.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I can't pick up fantasy where it's just common practice for characters to be raped and just, like, not say anything about it. Like, at least in something like this is a commentary against it.
Exactly, right. As opposed to just like, oh, that's how it was back then. It was just everybody was being raped all the time, and that's just like a social norm with this implicit, like, you should be glad you have it better today because you do, ?
That's why Name of the Wind kind of sucks. Fight me.
I hate that book so much. I fucking hate it. Absolutely fucking hate it.
Quote,
oh my God.
A fuckboy. You can fight me about it.
Yeah, I read both of them, like, in very quick succession because, like, I was traveling and I, like, finished one and it was, like, enough of, like, a page turner that I finished it quickly and I, like, wanted to know what happened.
Yeah.
And at that time, in between books 1 and 2, I would have said that I liked it. And then the further away I got from it, the more I hated them.
Yep.
And the more I was like, why is every woman character only in here as an actual sex object? Why?
I know.
Oh my God.
And then there was a novella about Ori, who is the best character, but then the novella just, like, sets her up to be kind of in love with Quoth, and I'm like...
Which is already what I was like, it was like, ugh, I feel like that's what they're doing with her, and I'm not here for it.
not here for it. Ori deserves better. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail this conversation, but like that was the first high fantasy that I could think of where this bullshit happens.
Yeah, I don't think I'll read the third one of those, and I tend to often be a completionist, and I will often finish series, and I just read Wheel of Time, which is 5 million pages.
He writes a beautiful sentence, he writes a beautiful metaphor, but his characters are full of shit.
Yeah, no,
That's really what it is.
I hate them. I just hate them so much.
And I would never say this to his face because he just looks so beleaguered all the time. And he probably gets "Where's the third book?" all the time. And I do not
probably
want to
not quite as much as George R. R. Martin getting the "Where's the next book?" but close.
And I don't want to add to the list being your characters suck.
Yeah,
Please sign my book.
In general, I tend to be of the opinion that rating is hard, and I usually I think it's obviously very relevant and important to do critiques of popular culture. Mm-hmm. I would never go up to an author at an event and be this is why, or tweet at them and be this is why I think your thing sucks.
Yeah, no.
I just that just seems an unnecessary mean thing to do.
No, I agree.
But if I ever cover it on this podcast, which to be honest is unlikely because then I'd have to reread it.
I mean, if you ever do, I would be down for joining you and just talking about how Quoth is a fuckboy the entire time.
Potentially, yes. Potentially one day I'll decide that I'm ready to reread and shit talk them for 2 hours.
Bast is the only character that matters.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
Yes.
Now that we got that out of our system.
Yes. So I will say one thing that I thought was that was just a little note that was made that I was wait, what? Why are you saying this? Okay, when Raoul takes Kel as his squire, Antigone and his men are talking about the possible rumors or whatever. Basically whether she's ready to handle dealing with that. Somebody says as a noble woman she wouldn't be thinking about marriage or childbearing for a long time. And then somebody else is well, but as a commoner, she would probably already be married and having children.
Yeah, which I also was what? Especially since in the first book, Lord Wilden was girls start young.
Right. That, but also it tends to be the reverse, actually. Yeah. That marriage in your early teens is much more common for members of the nobility, which makes sense because there's not the same kind of so when you get married, your family typically provides you with a dowry. So they provide you with some portion of the family's wealth. It's basically it's not necessarily always an equal portion, but it's to some extent getting basically an inheritance before your parents die.
Interesting. My family only provided me with anxiety.
The best kind of pre-mortem inheritance, anxiety. But so you would get this dowry and you bring a dowry into your marriage. And in families that are less wealthy, it's hard to come up with a dowry. It's hard to get to the point where you can offer enough money that is going to allow your daughter to make a reasonable marriage and that will not bankrupt your family because of that. And also because in noble families, there's often okay, she's 13 or 14, but we need this alliance to happen yesterday.
Yeah.
So let's get them married now. And there's not that kind of pressure for lower status families. And also, especially when you're talking about peasants or sometimes the urban poor, then for peasants, there's often well, you can use their labor. And so it might be beneficial to have them around for a bit longer because they're free labor. For urban women, then often they're they go into domestic service positions. And one of the things that women in domestic service positions or apprentices are sometimes doing is basically collecting the cash for their dowry through their wages.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought that this was very weird, but it's something that we see a lot in different kinds of media, not just this, is that
right.
Commoner women get married so young, and it persists through the books, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because it's this very commonly accepted stereotype.
Right, and it's something that she probably didn't necessarily think to research, essentially. Yeah. And also, I will say, in general, it is very rare that I read things and feel somebody actually bothered reading medieval social history. Which, like, I feel strongly about because, like, I'm a social historian. Like, I do, like, social and economic history.
Right,
and so I always like when it seems like somebody's done some research about, like, how, like, society works, as opposed to just, like, here is the name of 5 kings.
Like, you were describing me trying very, very hard to research, like, 1920s royal family etiquette. Like, would a princess in the 1920s be trained on what to do if she's kidnapped?
But see, yeah, like, that's the kind of thing that, like, yeah, that, like, that research is, like, worth doing. Like, and a lot of people, it seems like they kind of don't do it. And I think she just, like, had this stereotype in her head and assumed it was true and didn't bother, like, reading all of the books and articles about medieval marriage, which would have told her the opposite.
Yeah.
Which I get, but
it's just very funny to me.
Yeah, and it's a weird, like, perpetuation of stereotypes that I feel like have, like, probably some kind of classist roots, which, as I said, I'm sure she just, like, didn't know, but it's too bad that people usually don't, like, think to do that research.
Yeah. But I will store this away if I ever write a high fantasy.
Yes. And there is something, actually, in terms of the realm of social history that she does really well, which is the Historia ad Veritas section that I'm going to talk about: women in the textile industry, inspired by Lalassa. So a woman working professionally as a dressmaker, as she does, would not be that out of the ordinary. So I am writing a book, which is on women's work in 13th and 14th century Catalonia.
That's awesome.
And that was my dissertation, and now it's the book. And I have a lot of examples of women who are explicitly referred to as being often seamstresses. The kind of Catalan rendered in Latin is a costurera. And so essentially a seamstress, potentially kind of like a clothing maker. They probably were at different levels, and some of them were probably doing more actually making clothing, and some of them were doing basically kind of like making repairs, basically. We have women weavers, both in the kind of wool weaving industry and also in silk weaving. And this is a industry that, you know, has a pretty broad presence of women. I have apprenticeship contracts, so where women are actually taking on usually younger women as apprentices. I have contracts where, you know, women are like buying the raw materials that they need for their trade on credit. You know, so this is something that really would have been an option available to women, and something that I see both in my documents for Christian women and to some extent for Jewish women, although the Jewish women that I see tend to have basically like kind of joint enterprises with their husbands. I haven't seen as many Jewish women who are doing so basically independently, but they do exist as well. The one thing I will say is that there are relatively few women who are doing so who are never married women. That most of the time it's women who are referred to as either being married and probably, you know, sometimes they're kind of in business with their husbands, sometimes they're not. But it is very possible that it's essentially kind of a sort of shared fund of capital. And a number of them also are widows who are basically at the point where they can at least like kind of collect their dowries and administer them somewhat independently. And so they're able to kind of work based on that. But I do have a couple of references here and there to women who at least, the way you tend to know women's marital status is because the vast majority of women are described basically with reference to a man.
Right.
Most women, it's either you are the wife of so-and-so, or the way it's literally phrased in Latin, if you're a widow, is the wife of so-and-so who is dead.
I kind of want to be referred to as the wife of John Lestrange, who is horribly depressed. And just change it from, like, if you're alive or dead, and just be like, your emotional status.
Right. Like your Facebook status back when it was just like, so-and-so is, and you could just, like, fill in, like, 2 words.
John, by the way, snapped his head up when I said his name. He is looking at me very intently. What are you talking about? Why did you say my name?
But yeah, so that if you weren't married, then you'd be like the daughter of so-and-so.
Right.
So I do have, as I said, 1 or 2 women who are listed as either the daughter of so-and-so or who actually just have basically like a surname.
Okay.
And so for those, it's not definite, especially the ones with just a surname. It's actually not impossible that they're potentially widowed, but there is, some possibility at least that there are at least occasionally women who never married and just had a cool little like dress shop and did their own thing.
That's awesome. I'm really excited for you to get to Circle of Magic now because one of the characters is a weaver.
Ooh, I'm excited to be able to have an opportunity to talk about weaving and the textile industry more.
Like, I think it will hit you very deeply.
Amazing. I'm excited. We can now, I guess, then move into the Fabula Nostra, where we talk about a film or show inspired by this one. I mean, my answer is still just like that. I want the miniseries
Just
of this
continue
too.
it. Yes. I was trying to think of who could play Raoul, and I'm like, God, who is big enough to play Raoul?
Who is big enough to play Raoul?
Fucking huge. And my brain keeps coming to like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm like, but really?
Right. That would be kind of fun to just like have like The Rock in this like medieval thing.
I think he would like it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would also cast The Rock in a Circle of Magic role, which we keep just like trying to mention The Rock and just be like, hey, you want to do this?
You want to do this?
Hey, do you want to play a knight who takes really good care of people and is a very good person?
I think he'd be really good.
I think he would too.
My one thing is that I see Raoul as having hair.
Yeah. He's supposed to have black curly hair.
Yeah. In terms of like what Raoul like looks like except for the size, I'd almost want like Mark Ruffalo, but he's not big enough.
He's not big enough, but like he has that kind of goofy nature.
Yeah.
I just think about Mark Ruffalo seeing famous people and just being like, oh, it's a famous person. And just like, hey, Mark Ruffalo, do you know that you're famous too?
It's very cute. But yeah, like I feel like he could be good, but he's not quite yet. He's really not big enough.
Yeah. Raoul is supposed to be like 6.5 feet tall and like 4 feet wide.
Yeah, like he is like a giant.
I really don't know enough about actors to like really start like naming people, but I see you have Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, I was thinking is Neil, because Neil is a bit older than the rest of them.
Yeah, he starts off as 15.
Yeah, so I think it makes sense to like have somebody who is like maybe a little more of a like name cast as Neil, and I think he would be good.
Yeah, I think he'd be all right. I really only know him from Call Me by Your Name, which I hated.
He's really good as Laurie in Little Women.
All right, well that's good.
Yeah.
Call Me by Your Name was a special experience. I was not into.
I have not seen it.
Like, as a queer person, I think it was very geared towards like queer mask presenting people.
Right. And I also okay, is that also one of the something that has a big age difference?
Yeah, there's a huge age difference. Armie Hammer is in it.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't end super happily, and I'm like, I don't need to be sad.
Yeah, like as a queer woman as well, I don't love when like that tends to be like the main portrayals of queer relationships are like these relationships where like there is this like age difference that based on the ages of the characters like feels a little weird.
Yeah, because he's like 18 at most. And then Armie Hammer is like definitely in his late 20s. At least.
Yeah.
And like they have a relationship and I'm just like,
Yeah, and it just like feels a
creepy.
little too much like it's like, I don't know, kind of like feeding into like a like predatory queer archetype, which is not great.
That is how I felt.
Yeah.
And then like it doesn't end super happily and I'm just like, I have enough sad endings in my queer media. I don't need this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because that's a trope too, right? Of the like
nobody can be happy.
The like tragic queer relationship, like because it was interesting. Like I listened to the Adventure Zone, and they have like, which I love, yeah. But like, so they have like one arc which has a lesbian couple, and then they like die together.
Yeah, and Griffin talks about it later, and he's like, I didn't know it was a thing, and I fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, if I would not have done that if I'd like known that was like a trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like, I think they're trying. They're three white dudes. Yeah. Like they're three cis het white dudes, but I think they're trying their best.
They're doing their best.
And and I like appreciate that. Like, people called them out and like they talk and like Griffin talked about it, and like I think that's a good thing. But it is definitely like it's too bad that, like, that's what a lot of the, like, queer relationships that we have in media are.
Yeah. And, like, it seemed like they fixed it, at least in the graphic novel, a little more immediately.
Oh, really? That's good. That's good to know.
So, at least I felt it was better.
Yeah.
That is my 2 cents for
Yeah.
whatever you value it as.
So yeah, everybody, listen to us. Please make all of these into miniseries.
Please. And, like, let Raoul be bi.
Just let Raoul be bi, y'all.
And please just diversify the cast. They don't all have to be white.
Oh, right. They really don't. Like...
Oh, what's his name? Fuck. I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head because I'm so bad with them. But he's been all over my Twitter lately because he was in The Haunting of Bly Manor. He was
is it the guy who's in iZombie?
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't know his name, but I just watched the first episode of The Haunting of Bly Manor, and immediately I was like, oh, it's Ravi, and I am very distracted by that.
Ravi. I have to look up his name or else it's going to plague me for the rest of my life. For the rest of my days. It's Rahul Kohli. I wanted to say Raoul because it was very
Again,
close.
He's not quite big enough.
No,
but
he's
I
not
could
quite
see
big
him.
enough. But that's not who I would have cast.
Oh, okay. Who would you cast him as?
I just feel like he needs to be in there somewhere. I think he needs to be one of the knights.
Yeah.
He could be, maybe if we wanted to veer away from Timothée Chalamet, he could be Dom.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That could work.
Dom's supposed to be a little older.
Here's a weird... Could he be Jonathan?
Oh, he could be Jonathan.
I could see that.
Yeah, and that would make the Bazir thing a little less terrible.
It would.
Ever so slightly.
Yeah. It would be just a really subtle way to make it seem not as awful.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good call.
I mean, actually, like, I, in general, think that, like, things should just, like, I feel like that should just be, like, pretty much, like, race-blind casting. Like,
yeah, I agree. Turn it into a miniseries! Keep
yes.
going!
Oh, fuck. You know who oh, fuck. I feel like Chadwick Boseman could have pulled off Raoul and he's dead.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm sad.
Yeah.
He would have been a good Raoul.
Yeah. Well, now that we've depressed ourselves. Yeah, so now we can rate this on a scale of 1 to 5 in the estimatio.
I give Protector of the Small a 5.
That's very fair.
I'm very passionate about it. I will do anything for Keladri of Mindolin. I am ride or die for her. I would fight to the death. I would even fight a Spidrin if she asked me to. Because I know that Kel wouldn't let anything bad happen to me.
I get it. I'm saying a 4.5, and I will admit it is entirely because I cannot emotionally give it higher than the Song of the Lioness. Like, I just personally, for my own self, I cannot.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally solid. My co-host from Circle of Friendship, the very first time we talked to each other and we found out that we both liked Tamora Pierce, I told her that she could play Alana, and that cemented our friendship. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah, like, Alana was just, like, Alana when I was a tween was, like, who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And, like, that, and that cannot... Yeah, which is very fair, but it's just like, you know, especially like because I didn't read these books when I was young. Yeah. I have a relationship with Alana that I don't think I'll ever like quite be able to have with these books, just because like Alana is like a part of me.
Yeah. Like I've reread these books enough that like they're all part of me, and I learn from all of them, and like as soon as I finish Lady Night, I'm moving on to Trickster's Choice and Trickster's Queen, which is Alana's daughter, Allie.
Yes, I am excited. So I'm gonna do an Immortals reread sometime soon, and then embark on the others in some order.
Yes, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and I am very excited to have you back to talk Tamora Pierce with me.
Yes.
And one day I will actually do Circle of Magic, and then I will listen to your podcast because I was excited when I heard about it for the first time, but I haven't listened because I want to read Circle of Magic.
I mean, you can listen along, chapter at a time.
Right, exactly. But yeah, because I don't want to be spoiled by the podcast. I want to have the experience of reading. Fair. So yeah, one of these days I will get to it.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really had a great time.
Thank you so much for coming on. If you listened to the last episode, you got this intro already, but for anybody who did not get a chance to do so, MJ, where can the listeners find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at iHoardLibrarians, where I will be talking about my National Novel Writing Month project. If this comes out after National Novel Writing Month, I'll probably be sobbing over it for some reason or another. Just because 50,000 words in a month is a lot.
Yeah, it is.
That being said, you can also hear me on Reignite, a podcast about the Mass Effect video game series, The Circle of Friendship, which is a deep dive into the Circle of Magic books, also by Tamora Pierce, and the Rob Thomas No Not That One Robcast, which takes a look at the creative works of Rob Thomas. And I know what you want to think. It's definitely not that one. It's the other one. It's the other Rob Thomas, I promise you. You can also find all of these podcasts on certainpov.com. The Certain Point of View Network has all sorts of nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining me for these episodes. So, and if you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe in your preferred podcatcher app and rate and review Media-eval on Apple Podcasts. I'll read new 5-star reviews in future episodes. Please also follow the podcast on Twitter at Media-eval and join the Facebook group. And you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah ifft. If you have any questions or suggestions, I look forward to hearing from you at media.evalpod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Media-eval. Bye.
Bye.